Hi everyone, this is Roy Wasson-Valle giving you a demo for making a corrugated plastic lamp. We're going to use what is commonly known as Coroplast or Plastic-Or, which is this corrugated plastic material. You usually see it for political signs or other signs that businesses use, signs out in people's yards. And you can collect all of this, especially from a political campaign, 10 days after an election. It needs to be picked up by either the campaign or whoever can pick it up. So it's up for grabs. It's a lot of material. It's really good. And it's very durable. It's meant to be outside. So I have an example for you. I made this lamp using same material. This was new material, which is black. I bought it fresh. And this is the sort of basic shape that we're going to make today. Now these fins are something that you can change or not add if you want to. You can also add more sides than just these three to make things easier today and make it a faster demo for you so that you don't have to sit through more. I'm just going to do these three sides, add some very simple fins, and add our lamp element, which sticks in at the top. And I will show you some examples for cutting into this, making some windows to add color and make some changes with some of the materials that you may have at home. So earlier we had made lamps that look like this. Right? These are the simple paper lamps. These are very versatile also because you can cut different designs into them. And you can also add tissue paper behind it. So add color, make the field solid. It could also be white. You could also use regular paper and glue that on the inside of your lamp. Because we'll be using these lamps right here that come from IKEA. They're very basic. These are fairly cheap. It's from a different lamp kit. And this is just the light source. These are LED lights. It's 200 lumens, so it's very low wattage and a low light source. So it's really meant to be more of a mood light and not something that you would hang over a kitchen table. Put that over there. Here's this other example. As you can see with both of these, one has these little fins at the top, and then this one does not. Okay. So set those aside, and I'll show you the materials that we're going to use. So let me share the screen right here. All right, so this is my setup from above so that you can better see what I'm doing. All right. And then you can also see me from the front. Let's do the side. The materials that we have today are these, I call them brads, but as you can tell on this box, the official name would be brass plated fasteners. You can buy these at office supply stores. They're also available at places like the Goodwill or any other sort of thrift stores in their office supply places. So you can find these at thrift stores, or a place that I like going to is the ASU salvage shop. I don't know if it's open right now, but another place is the Art Resource Center, which is available for artists, teachers, and students. So they have that. Each of you has one of these, which is the awl. We covered the basics on using this tool for punching and making holes. I'm going to throw in a screwdriver. So we'll use this for the other fastener that we have available, that I'm going to demonstrate to you. And then, of course, a marker, and we have our cutter. This one does not have a safety, but I want to show you how to change the blade on one of these. So let's use this one. First, make sure that your blade is inside. And there's a little tab here. You press on that, and it comes off. And then when I remove it, I open it up slowly, and the blade is being held right here on this little circle. Now realize that all of this is still very sharp. So I pop that out like this. Discard this in a safe way, which would be to either wrap it up with paper or with tape and put it in the garbage. I have some extra blades right here. Make sure you only have one. These two are stuck together with a little bit of oil. And then this little hole corresponds to this little tab there. So I pop that in. And then I slide this in carefully and make sure that it's connected. Put this back on. Pops in, that's secure. And then my blade is secure, and I have 8 sharp blades. Now, whenever you cut, you want to have as little blade exposed as possible. For most of our project, that's about as much blade as you're going to need. I'll set these to the side. Now, each of you should have a sheet of chloroplast. This is fairly big. I think it's 24 inches by 48, so 2 feet by 4 feet. And we're going to use this to make all of your lamp parts. Now, this is a basic design. So I'm going to start off with a sketch. This. I think I'm going to make a square-ish type of shape that then I'm going to put in a fold right here and a fold right here. And we're going to do a fold right here. And just to make things simple, we'll keep it similar to what we did earlier, which is make tabs right here on the inside. And then we're going to remove all of this material right here and right here, like that. And what we will then do is add some pins. I think I like this sort of shape here and here, like that. And we could even do something where this piece goes out like that, and this piece goes out like this. In fact, these shapes could be a little bit bigger. Maybe it's even more like that, so that you have more of this white panel on the front. But we'll see, we'll get to that when the time comes. So if you have a ruler or some sort of stick, but as I demonstrated before, you could also use another one of these pieces itself as your straight edge. So you should have this edge should be fairly straight. So should this edge. Actually, the internal side will be a lot straighter than the external one. because these have been outside for a while, so they might be a little bit damaged. If you can see, there's some of that. So really, you'll want something like this on the inside. I can use that as my straight edge. And for the sake of making things a little bit easier for myself, I'm going to decide that maybe my lamp should be, how about as tall? No, that's a little too tall. I'm going to just do this. Let's say you don't have a ruler. I'm going to mark it right here. And I'm going to mark my lamp like that. It could be that. Maybe maybe I think it should be a little bit taller. So I'm going to mark it right here. The second line. I'm going to use the Sharpie so that it's easier for you to see, but I would suggest that you use a pencil so that you don't have to do any sort of cleanup afterwards, because this might not always come off. The way that you would wipe off Sharpie would be with alcohol, but it always leaves a little bit of residue. So I suggest that you use a pencil, but so that you can see what is going on. Actually, I don't need to mark more because my flutes are going in this direction. Which will show me my square. Actually, see that maybe what I want to do is turn this so that the flutes are going straight up and down. So, using my guide again, I'm going to mark it here and here. All right. So that's how tall my lamp should be, because I want my folds to be like this. So using a straight edge, I'm going to use the inside. Okay, let me make sure that that's, yeah, that looks correct. Using the inside cut of this piece of coroplast, I'm going to cut it very carefully. Let's see, make sure it's lined up. Okay, I can see my mark here. You can see a little bit darker right there. And then I can also see a mark right here. It's very slight for you to see, but on your own piece, you should be able to see it. So I like to stand up when I'm doing something like this, and I'm going to put my hand right here because this is the end that I'm going to start cutting with. And then make sure that your blade is locked. And let's put that down. So I lock the blade, and there's a little bit of, maybe one more. So what I do is now, without moving my knife, I shift my hand back down a little bit, and maybe even a third time. Now I've not cut all the way through. I've only cut the very top layer. So now I go back and do a second time. And I can tell that even this time, it needs one last pass. So you don't have to do a lot of pushing when you're doing that. And that last bit is, if you fold it, sometimes any other little connectors that exist will pop through. Now it looks like I'm slightly off right here, but I'm just going to go with it and make my other pieces. So this right here is probably enough for 2 pieces side by side. But instead of trying to fold again, sorry, not fold again. Instead of trying to measure again, I'm going to use the first piece that I cut as my measurement for my second piece. And so I line it up again, make sure that's lined up on both sides. You want to try and make it as exact as you can, because there's always going to be things that happen and it won't ever be fully exact. So you can help it out as much as possible by just being careful. So 1, 2, and then 3. Seems to be fine. So there's this piece and this piece. Right? You still have quite a bit of sheet left over. So it's possible that you could do a much larger project or do a secondary project. If you plan it out correctly beforehand, maybe use all of it. But it's always nice to have extra material. So let's see here. If I were to do a square, that would be making this mark right here. But I also want to make sure that I have extra material for my folding. So this is about 1 inch wide. This is about 1 inch wide. And I think maybe it should be slightly bigger than that. So let's choose this one. So then I'm going to count the lines. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it folds at the 7th one. So then this is my fold. And then from that point, I'm going to mark it here. So then that means that this right here is how wide the entire lamp base is. So I have, here's a fold, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this is number 7. And then I measured from there to here, and then I'm going to count 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then this is the one that I'm going to cut. Right, so then, there we go. That. And now that I have a smaller piece, I can use that and just mark it all the way down. Just make sure that it's in between those two side walls. And I'm going to very lightly go through the top layer and go through the bottom layer. You're going to find that when you're cutting in between the channels on the flutes, it's much easier to cut through because you're only cutting one side of the plastic and then the other side. You're not going through all of these different layers when you're cutting across. So I have this one, and then do I have enough material? No, I only have enough for one. So this is an extra little piece. In the future, I think what one can do is measure this, cut this in half, and then make your folds from those pieces. But since I can still do that, actually. Let's do that. Because I would rather keep the material than cut an extra piece from my larger leftover. So this is 24. So I'm actually measuring here. This is 12 inches. I'm going to mark this right here. So this will be my cut right there. Let's mark that. Cuts through. All right. which means that this piece now is a little bit longer than the other two. So what I'm going to do is cut it down to match the other two. Which means right here. Right like that. And I'm going to cut the top side and then the bottom side. I'm used to holding this knife this way. If you feel like you need more power, you can do this, and then you can stand up to give it more strength when you're cutting, so that you feel more securely on top of the material. All right, so I have two pieces that are all the same, but I would still like this to be square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take how tall this is, turn it to its side so that's perpendicular, and then I'm going to count how many flutes there are. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need to make a decision here. Do I fold on the fourth one or on the fifth one? I'm going to fold on the fourth one, which means that I have half a flute and 3 fold pieces right here. So I counted 1, 2, 3, and then here's where I'm going to fold. And then on this side, there's half a piece, which is my edge, and then fold or count 1, 2, 3, and then this is my fold. All right, this is much thinner than I thought it would be. Maybe I could add a second one instead. Let's do it on the fifth one. So now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is the fold. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is the fold. Okay. And now, using the edge of my other piece of chloroplast, I'm going to take this awl here and line this up where I'd like it to be, and I'm going to take the side of this right here, and I'm going to use that to press against the plastic. And I'm going to run it all the way through. What I would like is to not press hard enough that this edge cuts it. I just want it enough so that it pushes it down. So I'll do this, and you can feel it kind of push in a little bit. Okay. Now, when I do this, it makes a nice fold right along that line. Sometimes it'll be a little bit off, it's possible, but I would rather do that than to cut it, because it keeps both sides intact and it has more strength by doing that. So it looks like my second piece was a lot. It looks like the second piece was a lot better than the first one. And so here, that's a nice fold. And here, that's a nice fold. Corner. This one had a little bit of trouble. It kind of jumped the line a little bit. Just moved from one side of the channel to the other. So maybe I can press down on this side a little bit. Do that. So now that works. We got that and that. So now I have one side. And because this one is the one that's a little bit messed up, I'm going to use that to be the top of my fold for the top of the lamp. So I'll do the same over here. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this will be where I fold it. Like that. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this will be the fold. So again, place that through like that, and push And I see. So you just need to make sure that you're in the same channel. And maybe what would help here is to mark it on the top also. So then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is my fold. So make sure that those two are connected to each other. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and right there. I'm right-handed, so I turn things around a lot so that I'm doing my folds and cuts on the right side rather than on the left side. Okay. So now that is a nice corner, and on this side, same thing. So I have that, 2 of them, and then again, here 1, 2, 3, 4, fold, 1, 2, 3, 4, and fold, and then turn it around and do the same thing. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and fold. 1, 2, 3, 4, and fold. Even though I have folded these other pieces, I can still use them as a guide. And all right, so I have now 3 pieces that eventually will do this. Now, of course, if you wanted to, you could try to have these folds on the inside, or you could flip these around. And one student demonstrated a connection which would be like this. That's also really elegant. So you have some choices. I'm still going to stick to this piece because I can get to both sides on here from the outside, and I don't need to reach inside. And now I move on to the top, and again here, maybe the top has a little bit more. No, I can just use the width of this. So I'm going to mark it with this Sharpie, even though I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend using a pencil, but I want you to be able to see where that is. So we do that. Here's my mark. Let's measure this. So this is bigger than this. So I have a yardstick. It's hard for you to see the numbers on here. They're in orange on orange piece of wood, but it is about 10 inches. So that means about 5 inches should be right here. Let's see. And the 5 inches is exactly on one of the plastic pieces. So I'm going to make a decision and go to the right, and I'm going to say that's the 5 inches. Or to make it symmetrical, I can just say both of these are the middle, right? Or that little line is actually the middle, and use that as my guide. So if that's 5 inches, so 3.3 inches is roughly a third of 10 inches. So I could just decide 3 inches right here, but let's go with 1.5. Let's just go with 3. So I'm measuring 1.5 inches from the very middle out. And then again, 1.5 from this line, this middle line, out to the other side. So 1.5. So then these are my tabs. And again, it looks like I need to decide. So right there, like that. You could also count. If this is your middle line, right here, you could count out. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so it ends up being the same. You know, this line and this line. So I'm going to remove this material, and I'm going to remove this material, and I think I'm going to leave this piece right here. No, let's also remove that. So we'll just cut this and this. Now, before I do any of that, I'm going to mark all of my other pieces. So now, here are my other pieces that are of lamp. So I'm going to place them and say this is the top of this piece, and this is the top of this piece. So when they're placed up, they're in the same position. So I'm going to mirror them and mark them like this, this, and this. And I also can mark this and this. Okay. So make these lines all the way there, which means that this is the material I'm removing, and this is the material that I'm removing. So I'll set that one aside, and then do the same with the next piece using the original marked piece. So I think best would be to mark this line here. Here, okay. This is slightly different. So I think I need to decide to shift over a little bit. Now, if you wanted to be very exact with this material, what you can do is do all of the counting for all of the flutes. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to do this, split the difference, because when I make the full triangle, it won't matter that this one is slightly bigger, because I'm going to match it to itself. So I'm going to go in, one flute on each side. So this is slightly different than my original, but just by one. Okay. So that means I'm removing all of this material and all of this material. So I'll set that aside. And what I want to do is maybe this. Use one of these, or you could make yourself a straight edge with one of these pieces, or let's see, how about one of these? Use this yardstick to make another yardstick. And the reason that I'm doing this right now is because it isn't as fat as the yardstick. See how thick the yardstick is? This is slightly thinner, and it's lighter to use, and it's also not as long. because I don't need something this big. So this will be good enough for marking and scoring lines. So I come back here. I'm setting that against my line, and I'm not going to cut it. I'm going to use the awl to score it. Oops. And you want to do it very slowly and carefully. Make sure that your hand isn't migrating the way that it just did for me right now. And here's a good example. Let's use the full piece. It's a little bit bigger because I can put more pressure on it. So I'm going to do that again. Now, I'm slowly bending it against this piece of material. The way I described before, there's a tool for bending metal. It's called a brake. So this would be making your corrugated plastic brake. Okay. So I have that. And now, with my knife, I'm going to just cut right on these lines, here and here. And now with my smaller piece, I'm going to just cut from here to here because I want to remove this. Make sure you realize where your thumb is. You don't really want to stick it out, but sometimes you do need to hold it in place. So just very slightly push through. Second time, 2 times was enough. And again, because I'm right-handed, I'm going to keep it in the same direction, but I'll make sure that when I get to the end here, I don't cut into my tab. Do that. And then a little bit more. And now I haven't cut all the way through, but I really want to make sure that I don't cut into that tab. So I'm just going to push right into this corner like this. And then pull back very slightly. So the second time, and then you can just pull that off so that very, very tiny corner comes right off. So now I have this and this. Oh, and I realize right now that I want that to fold in. So I'm going to do this. Do this and do this. So now I have a fold that's going in and 2 that are coming out. Repeat that here. The first is score. And to be honest, it probably will work better if you flip this around and score it on the other side. It still works, scoring it on the opposite side of where the fold is going to be, but it will work better if it's on the opposite side. So do it slowly. Make sure that you're pressing up against this material instead of coming off, which is very easy to do. Right? So now, without removing this, now I'm going to press down on this side and then push up. Right? So now I have a nice fold on this side and this side. It looks like I'm slightly off to my eye, but you can still work with that. And coming back here, I'll first cut this piece, and then this piece. Notice my hand is way over here. And now I'm going to cut this first piece very slightly. Oh, comes right off. And then this other one. I'm just cutting the first layer on the top, and just to make sure that I don't overcut here. I'm just going to do it by hand, and then that comes right out. All right, so now that I had scored it on this side, it should fold very nicely to the inside, and it does. All right. So now these are two folds that are going out and one that's going in. So there's the second piece, and then we have our last piece, which will be the fold. So I need to remark it here. Like that. Place this over. This, fold it down, and feel free to stand up if you're not getting, if this is moving around under your hand. So there we go, and it doesn't really want to fold well, so I can just do this where you fold it a little bit and a little bit. All right. The rest isn't that important because I know that I'm going to cut the rest of this out, so I don't need to make all those folds right now. Use this. Very slowly. Okay. Oh, it's still attached right there, so I can go in and back on it. Here. And now there's my last piece. Fold that in, fold this in. Okay. So now we have three pieces. Do this. And now this would be the time if you wanted to make any sort of designs or any cuts, those would be here. So I'm going to do a simple cut, and to keep things easy, I'm not going to do any sort of measurements. I'm going to do this like that, and this like that, and this like that, and maybe this piece. So those 4. All right. Same thing here. Now, because you have these flutes that are going straight up and down, cutting across them or to a diagonal to them is difficult. So try not to cut all the way through. You're just scoring or cutting the very top of the layer, and then you're coming back in. And whenever I do a corner, what I try to do is to cut right into that corner. And you can turn your piece around and then do the other side of each of the corners, instead of trying to cut from one side to the other. And usually popping it through, make sure that any of the little tabs that are still holding on will come right off. So very slightly mark it. And many times I may just be in the mode of cutting, so I will do all of my primary cuts like this. Okay. And then go back and do them again. And you can feel it cutting through to the other side. So right now, so that I don't forget where I've already cut, I'm just going to concentrate on one at a time. And you can also flip it around, and you'll be able to see where it's been cut. And I can see right here, like this right here is still connected, and this is still connected. So from this side, I can actually just punch through a little bit, and then those come right out. I'm noticing right now that I should have drawn these on the inside, but even so, since I use Sharpie, they will show. So because that's part of it, maybe I should just incorporate that into my project. So now I have these odd shapes that are part of my lamp. Got that. Kind of looks like a space baby carriage. This one is going to be a diamond. Triangles like that. Let's see, that one and that. Okay. So got all of these. You don't need to go quickly. And make sure you don't, what I call it is get lazy and not move your hand. So go ahead and always readjust where your non-dominant hand is. Okay, try that. And I like checking it on the other side, so now I can see where that is. If I push on it, I can see that. Okay. So it looks like I need to cut across here. And here. And here. And here. This side, I can mark that, and the rest just tears out. You need to make sure that you have really good lighting wherever it is that you are cutting, so that you can see all of the little shadows when you are cutting. They help you as guides. Like that. And then here's our last one. So I did 2 parallel lines, and then I come back here, do 2 other lines. And these 2 that are connected. And then I'm going a little bit over my shape. Instead of having to clean it up, that cleans it up in itself. Nobody knows what that's supposed to look like, so I get to decide in the moment if I need to change it. This is tiring on one's hands. So remember to take breaks if you need to take breaks. And maybe even do different tasks so that you're alternating. You could do each one of these pieces to completion instead of doing each step at a time. So you can make one full one of these, then one full one of these, and then one full one of these. So that gives you a bit of a break between each of these sessions where you're cutting out all of these parts. Or you could decide to not cut any shapes, and then you don't have to worry about it. So now we have 3 of these. Just get rid of my excess material. This plastic is called polypropylene. Most places will recycle it, but if you have any doubts, you can check your city's website and see if they take polypropylene. Right, so now we have 3 of these shapes. Let's connect them. Actually, before we do that, let's make some simple fins to put on the sides. So I want to use these odd political signs. So I have some, let's see, okay, these are all folded there. Here's one. Is this tall enough? Yeah, it is. But I actually would like it to be a little bit taller. I would like this to be maybe like that. And like this. So here's a piece. And the other thing that I'm going to do here is all of my flutes are going this way. I'm going to cut this piece so that the flutes are going that way. And so that you can't just read what is on here. I'm going to cut this out right here, right at that line. And I'm just eyeballing it right now, but that looks pretty straight to me. So the first time is scoring it the first time and then coming through and cutting it 2 pieces, so 2 or 3 times. So you can see there that it came right off. That's printed on both sides. So I know that right here is where these 2 pieces will connect to each other. Right like that. So again, I'm not going to measure things out, but you're certainly welcome to. It really depends on your style. But I think I want to do something that is like this, like that. So I'm going to mark where this goes, right here. So this is my bottom. Afterwards, I'm going to round these little corners so that I don't have some little sharp edges. And then I'll use this one to make 2 more. So it looks like I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cuts. So I think maybe I'm actually going to start with this big middle one. And I'm just scoring that. And I can feel right now that maybe my blade should be changed because it's difficult to get through that material. But I like to do this long internal cut first because it's being held in place by the sides here, instead of doing all of these and then trying to do this big long one. So what I'm going to do is change this blade, or cut, snap off the blade so that we have a second one. What you want to do is unlock your blade and then push this out so that the score line is outside of the cutter. Right? So you have it right here. And then I'm going to relock it, turn it around, and so that my blade doesn't go out flying, I'm actually going to put this over it instead of using my finger. And then I'm going to press down against the table. Okay, there we go. And it came right off. You do have to put in quite a bit of pressure, and there are occasions where it might break straight ahead. If that happens, you just push out more and then make sure that it's breaking right at the score line. So I'm going to go back to this position. Make sure that you take care of this. I'm going to set mine aside and then dispose of them later. And then now I'm going to do this piece. And then this piece. Okay. And now this piece. And this piece. That's actually a little bit awkward, so I'm going to flip this around. And this piece, like that. That comes right out. And this would be a good occasion to use scissors, because you can just use scissors to that very edge, and you don't really need to round it. If you don't want to, you can. So you can come back here and round that, top and bottom, top, that cut over a little bit. I think maybe just blunting the end so that it's not as sharp. Like that. You could get fancy and make a much bigger curve here and here and here, but I'll leave it where it's at. Now, let's see. This is my edge that's a little bit messed up from being outside, but I know that that's going to face the inside of the lamp. So I can either do this, or maybe I shift it over a tiny bit and like that. So now I have another piece, and I want this to be straight, so I can mark here. Now, you can keep in mind that when I made this outline, my marker line was outside of the material. So I want to put my straight edge not on the line, but back so that I can see where the line is. And that'll keep it generally about the size of the original piece that you are copying. Okay. So I'm not actually trying to cut all the way through from the top to the bottom. I'm just trying to cut where this line is, because it's the same idea where if I leave it on inside of this piece of Coroplast, then it's being held by the rest of it. So it's not sliding around, and I have more to hold on to. I'm going to do my big curve first. And again, you're not trying to cut all the way through, you're just trying to cut a little bit. And this is my second cut. And then you could even do a third cut, but that third one seems like it's done all the way through. And I found that these last two cuts were harder to do, so I'm going to actually start with those. Okay, that one, and this one. Okay, there, and here. Here's this piece, and again, you can cut the ends. Here and here. I'm going to set this one aside, and I'm not going to use it for the next piece. Instead, I'm going to use the original piece that I had done. So again, here I think I'm just going to, that's interesting to have some of this word and some of this word, and that way you can't read either. So the meaning of the sign gets lost. Oh, and here's a hole. So I want to make sure that I'm not on that hole. And you can even use the flutes themselves to line them up so that they're all going in the same direction. All right, so here. The other thing to think of is if this piece that you've been using to do all of your lines, I'm using a Sharpie, I'm getting Sharpie on the edge of it, on this side and this side. I could make the decision that this is just going to be a template, and then I can cut an extra piece and have that be my actual final piece instead of the one that I've drawn on. So I'm going to, this means you end up doing a fourth thin, but once you cut it out, it's much cleaner than your original. One, and since I already have this straight edge in my hand, I'm going to do if you find that this straight edge is a little bit wobbly and you have a yardstick, use the yardstick or use the ruler. I think I need to put the blade out one more. All right, and it's gone all the way through, and of course, because I've already marked it, I can slowly go right into the cut and make sure that it is doing its job. All right, so now my large curves. And right now I notice that my arm is a little bit close, so I'm going to move it to the side. Just a second. Work, and now because I'm near this other piece, I'll do that one. And then because I'm going in the same direction, I'll now do this one. I'm going to flip it around and do this one first. Here. This one. Same thing. instead of flipping around to my original position, I'm just going to go ahead and cut the two ends that I'm near. And then I already know that I haven't cut all the way through, but I've cut enough where I can just do a second pass. And now I know that I can do this one and this one, and they are definitely going to come out. Now, oh, it looks like I didn't cut the curve. So come back and cut that curve right there. One, this, and two here. So now I'm going to set this aside. And I have these, right, let's that and that. This corner and this corner, and then this corner, this corner, and this corner. You want to take more care with yours, but that one will work for me right now. All right, so now we have 3 fins, and then this is the original. So I know that they all line up here, like this and like this. So what I need to decide now is where my rivets should be. And I think that they can be about this distance. And I'm going to use my finger as a guide, like this. Actually, I'm going to use this third finger right here. I'm going to hold this and just mark it like that. I'm not moving my hand. So like that. Oops. And here and here. I think that ends up being almost an inch. So you could also use the yardstick and mark it like that and like that. It ends up being the same. So I have this line, this line, this line, and this line. And I'm going to, if you notice right here, you have a flute here and here. So I really want to be on the inside. So I'm going to count 2 and go in 1. Count 2, go in 1. Count 2, go in 1. And count 2 and go in 1. So the rivet is a little bit on the inside. And let's do the same over here. And again, I'm using my finger as a guide right here, this finger. And doing this. And then I also know that this should be, this is about the middle, but I can check it by marking that and that, or you can also count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then this is the line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the middle. All right. So with the awl, you'll want to punch a hole, and at this point you should have a lot of little scraps left over, so you can punch right into those. So I am going to actually punch in this direction, so that's flat, and when I put my brads through, the little tines will be straight up and down. And if for some reason you do that the opposite and you find that you would like it to be in the other direction, just take it out and put it in the direction that you would like. The plastic itself will hold it in place. I'm wiggling that in, and same thing here. All right. You could also flip it over if you wanted to, and make sure that those holes are where you want them to be. If you do it on both sides, it actually works slightly better because then the holes are more even. So now I have a hole here, 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 and here. And I'm going to use this one to mark my other sides. This one and this one. Put that right over. And I can see that these are slightly off, right, because of what we had. Oh, let's see. Let me make sure that that's correct. Yeah. So I'm going to punch in there, and right now you're just marking it. And over here, make sure that these are like that. Okay. Same thing. You can turn it around. I can see that the hole is punched through a little bit there, but not quite here. So I'm going to go back in on this side, and this side, and you want to make sure you're not punching another hole in your original face side. Okay. Right. All right, we got that, and the last one. And around this, this, and this. Okay. So now we have all of those, and then this was the original piece that I made. So let's match these up right here, like that. And I'm using my template piece, and I'm going to make 2 little punches right there, right there, and again flip it over, there, right there, because now I will take those and use them to punch the final holes for all of the pins. Now I'm not stacking all of them together because there's a possibility sometimes of you're all migrating and going somewhere else and going slightly to the side. So it's better to just do one at a time to make sure that all of your holes match up. There you go, and it's more important for this side to be lined up than for this side to be lined up. Okay. So now I know that I have this. Punch through again, just to make sure that when I put in the brad, it doesn't have any interference. I don't want to get overzealous and wiggle the awl around and make a big hole, just enough. If you need to, you can put your hand on this side to give more power to your tool. All right. So now I know that this hole right here should match up with this one, or at least close enough. I'll take some of my brass plated connectors, fasteners, put those through right there. And then I'm going to go through the hole of the fin. And let's do it also for this top side. And right here. So I have that and that. And now I can put in this other side to the lamp. I know that fits there and there. So now we have a sandwich, which is close enough, of 3 pieces of coroplast. I'm going to fold those over like that. If this bothers you, you can always take some of the red vinyl and cover that. Cut a little strip, or just little squares that fit on here, or if you're covering the whole other side. You also have this material that you can cut little pieces. This is a sticker material, so you can cut little pieces that go on the ends here. This is very reflective, so at night any little bit of light will make this shine. So you have your first fin that's connected to your lamp piece right here. So now I'm going to go through and do the same. Now I like all of these to go in the same direction. So if I punched in on the right side here, I'm going to turn this lamp over to this side and put in all of the brads on this side. So that as you turn the lamp, all of them are facing the same direction. That's just a personal preference. You can do it whichever way you would like, because it's your project. So put in a second piece here, second piece here. All right. Now I'm not going to connect it to this piece. I need to connect it to the next lamp piece. And punch them through here and here. And now this is like this. And fold that over like that. Fold this over like this. All right. Now we have our last corner. So I'm going to put in these last 2 fasteners. So they're going in this direction. I'm going to continue in that direction. Get some encouragement. And even though these are slightly dull, you want to make sure that your fingers aren't on the other side, because with enough force, you can punch that into your finger. You don't want to do that. So I want to make sure when I'm pushing that I can see where that's coming out. This side and this side, and I'm doing 1 layer at a time. I'm not trying to do all 3 at the same time. This gives you more control. So I'm folding this back and making sure that I can see where the end of the brad is and where the hole is. Okay. Make sure that you can see that. Like this. Put those through. And right here. goes through like that. And usually one of these is longer than the other, so that allows you to push on this side and this side. And then here, you see that one side is longer. So push that one back, and then this one. And like I said, you can cover this later. So now I have this lamp that has these funny pins. I want to do them. There we go. And then all of these will face the inside. Right. So, because I didn't do measurement before of what my triangle was, because that would involve having to put it together, then take it apart, I'm just going to take a scrap piece and put it right over where the lamp top is going to be. So now I have this. So this part can be a little bit difficult to do, but I can help myself by a jar. And put this on top of the jar. The jar is taller than these pins. So now you can press down right here like this. So you can see that. And using my Sharpie, I'm going to draw a line on the outside here and on this side right here, bottom, and then also on the left side. I'm still holding it in place. And very carefully, I'm going to do an outline slightly of my tabs. Right there and right there. Yeah, okay. So now I have where the edge is right here, and then where the edge is right here, and the same thing here, here, and here. So what I want to do is connect all of these corners with a line, like that, like this, and like that. And if you wanted to, you can also straighten out these sides. And what this ends up becoming is a hexagon, right? So I know that the tabs go here, here, and here. So now with my cutter, I can either do it by hand without a blade or without a ruler, or I can use a ruler and cut right on this line. And I'm just, again, scoring and cutting. And I'm scoring because my thumb has to be down here in order to hold this ruler. So I don't want to try and cut all the way through and increase the possibility of slipping and cutting my thumb. So I'm trying to always minimize personal injury. And of course, if you're working with someone near you, you also don't want to put them at risk. So now I can bend this a little bit, and I can tell that some of these still need a second pass. And now it's all coming apart. Okay. Now I can turn this around. I know that this is going to match my top, at least enough. So it is a little bit organic. So I think that's it right there. And to start off my first hole, I'm going to use this so that you can see it, is I've decided that this best matches all of my tabs. So I'm going to lay it down on my table and line this up with the top edge of the lamp right here. And right there. You can see it right there like that. And now I'll take the awl and punch that through. And now what I'm going to do is rotate this and rotate this. And do the same. The reason that that's important is because this is slightly off on this tab, this little hole. So I want to make sure that the two holes match each other. So again, rotate this one and this one. Here. And I'm also going to mark it. Here's a little star. I'm going to mark a little star right here so that these two match one another. And the reason for doing that is because what we're going to want is to find the middle, and then we're going to cut an X right here, and that's where we're going to punch our lights through. So I'm going to guess at the middle, but a way that you can find the middle somewhat is by using the points of your punches and then coming to the middle. So it's about in that general area. What I want to show you is that these are the lamps that we're using. It's an IKEA desk lamp. So then I have this larger circle. And I want to place that about in the middle, where I think that is. I'm going to mark that. Right? It looks close enough, but looks like maybe it's more like here and here. So like that. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to make an X. You can get complicated and maybe make a full asterisk, but I think the X will be enough. So I'm going to cut in one full line and then cut in these tabs so that they go on the inside. The best comparison to this is the top of a disposable soda glass or cup. So then, oh, it looks like maybe it does need another cut. So we're going to make two more cuts this way, here and here, and then here and here. So at this point, what you want to do is you want to cut from the outside to the inside of your point. Like that. And don't try to cut all the way through from one side to the other, because it really won't let you. So you just cut into the middle. Now I have this sort of star. Here you can see it better on this side, like that. See? And this is your clean side. You'll have this facing on the outside, and of course you can clean this all up. Make sure that your holes for your brads are going all the way through, and here and here. So I'm going to set this aside. It's probably a good habit to cover it when you're not using it. All right, so my star is right here. There's the star. There. And must be right here. So I know that these two match up. I want this to be on the outside. So I'm going to put the brad in this way. And I think we can go ahead and put in these other pieces. So you have all of these coming through, and then a brad or the hole that has the star right here. So I'm going to push that through. So I have that, fold that out, and then I know that this next one should match up with this one. Because these are a little bit longer, I can do this. It looks like maybe I need to make sure that this is clear. So do this, okay? And this is big enough that now you can fold it on the inside. And then this last one, fold it through, down, and the same thing. Now I can reach in and fold that. Again, you can cover these with a tape if you don't want to be able to see those brads. So now we have our little star opening at the top, and then we have the rest of this lamp construction that is ready for its light. So you can take this and very slightly push through, and I'm pushing in with both hands here. It actually seems like this could be something that you do before you add this top tab, but I can still do it that way. Let's see. That came undone a little bit like that. And like this. So now I have the top of my lamp in like that, and that's being held. Now this is pulling off slightly, so I can put a piece of tape right here to hold it in place, or I could put in a secondary button or a tertiary button over here. But for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to leave it like that for now. And we have an added benefit. We put our light bulb in. We now have a lamp that you can either hang or it can sit on a table like this. So I turn this on. So we have this construction, kind of looks like a little chimney, or we have a lamp like that. Now, if you want to, of course, is you can add these stickers. You can cut them into different shapes. So now I have this that I can add right here. Take that off. Right, like that. So now I have this reflective piece. You could also put those reflective pieces on the inside. This piece, if this for some reason bothered you, you could take that piece, and this could be your template, and then you use that on one of your clean pieces of white. The other thing to keep in mind is that you have all of these other pieces of core class. So instead of all of them being white, you may have a piece that's large enough for this window, but if you don't, you could use one of these for this piece. These fins could be shorter, or you could also have another piece that you sandwich in between this one and this one. So this could be on the inside. So then you have something that does that. So then you start to add other elements. The other thing that we've included is you have some of this double-sided tape, and that can always get, if you didn't want to put in rivets in here, you could always put some of that double-sided tape and put it through. Now, when you have this lamp, that light shows through, so if you have a little bit of tape, that's also going to show. So you will see some of that right there. And then you can see the differences here where the light shows through on this side, but it shows through more where there's been a window cut out. So if I were to do this, then you have that happening, that effect, and you can play around with that and even have some sort of stained glass effects that are on your lamp. Or say, since no light is shining through these fins, then this would be the area where you use your double-sided tape and you attach pieces here where maybe you have pieces that are on them like that. And then it also adds dimensionality where you have this piece, and then maybe you have a companion piece on the other side, and then maybe you even have a smaller piece that's on top of that. And kind of like this. Get to smaller pieces, you can use scissors. So then all of these are taped onto a fin, and then you have this other piece like that. So then you can start to build and do other things. And these are just geometric. They can always add interest. You could make a frame that is just following this contour right here. So then this is flat, and then it comes out two layers on that side, and then 2 layers on this side. So then you start to create other possibilities with the materials that you do have. And again, this is something that you can draw on this side, or if you are skilled at doing things backwards, you could draw, if you say wanted to say hello. So then you can cut this out, and once you do, then you have a clean hello on this side, and then you can stick that here, or little pieces, or however you would want. The last thing that I want to show you is that later on you can find these. These are the easy anchors, and they allow you to put something together without having to reach in on the other side. The other thing to keep in mind, though, is that when you do something like that, you have this sticking on the inside. So you want to do it where you have a closed form and you can't look on the inside. So maybe it's a solid box, which would be another shape. And then maybe there is the light source, but it's very small, so you have tiny little windows, and then you can't see the ends of this. But to give you an idea of how this works is I am going to say adhere this to here. So I'm going to first punch a hole right here. And then I want it to be right there. So I'll punch a hole right there. That one and that one. Now, I can push that through. And then push that through. And then with my screwdriver, it wants to spin, so I'm going to hold it in place. And now I have something that has been added. It's flush to the surface. Now keep in mind that that's what happens on the other side. So you want to do that where you wouldn't see that. And you can also add a few layers. So maybe you have 4 of these stacked together, and that creates a real dimension of the material itself. So that's an example of some of the things that you can do with this material. And keep in mind, if later on you get real serious about it, this will help you do some of those cuts and corners. And this is called a Core Plus cutter. So that's a very searchable thing. They're about $12. Okay. So that's the class. So if any of you have any questions, please let me know, let your instructors know, and I can get back to you. Thank you for coming by. We appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it. This is a great experience.